Gary Ridgway, notorious as the Green River Killer due to the Seattle locations where many of his victims were found, claimed responsibility for the murders of up to 80 women. In 2003, he became America's deadliest convicted serial killer when he pleaded guilty to 48 counts of murder. 8 years later, he was admitted to a 49th count after the remains of another victim were discovered. Welcome to Crime Scene Archives. In today's video, we are going to delve deeper into the horrific story of the infamous Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway. Viewer discretion advised. This video contains graphic content related to crime scenes. It is intended for educational purposes only. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Born on February 18, 1949, in Salt Lake City, Gary Leon Ridgway grew up in the impoverished vicinity of Seattle's Pacific Highway, situated near SeaTac Airport. Struggling academically, he served in Vietnam after completing high school. Upon his return, Ridgway secured a job as a truck painter, maintaining this occupation for a span of 30 years. Despite undergoing 3 marriages and displaying strong religious beliefs, Ridgway paradoxically engaged in frequent interactions with prostitutes. Over 2 decades, Ridgway systematically sexually assaulted and strangled numerous women, many of whom were prostitutes or runaways. He strategically dumped their bodies across various locations in King County to confuse law enforcement. Despite his gruesome activities, the seemingly unassuming Ridgway never discussed his killings with anyone or kept souvenirs from the crimes. Throughout this period, he maintained his long-standing job as a truck painter at the Kenworth truck plant in Renton and entered into his 3rd marriage. This convoluted journey ultimately led him to a life sentence at Washington State Penitentiary, where he remains incarcerated today. July 15, 1982, the first victim of Ridgway's body is found. Children discovered 16-year-old Wendy Caulfield's strangled body floating in Seattle's Green River in July 1982. 4 other women who had all been strangled were found dead in or around its banks over the course of the next few weeks. Detective David Reichert was among the first law enforcement officers to arrive at the location after 3 more victims were discovered on August 15. 31-year-old Marcy Chapman was discovered in shallow water next to 17-year-old Cynthia Hines' nude corpse. Opal Mills, 16, was found dead close by in the underbrush. Her breasts were bare, her arms and legs were covered in bruises, and her neck was knotted with blue pants. August 16, 1982. The formation of a police task group. More victims were found near the river and in the vicinity of Seattle-Tacoma International Airport after the King County Sheriff's Office established the Green River Task Force to look into the crimes. As a result, the number of bodies increased. The Green River Killer killed and sexually abused over 40 more women in the course of the following 2 years. Riker told Time magazine, "Finding a body was like getting hit on the head with a baseball bat every time." April 13, 1983. Ridgway is initially under suspicion. Marie Mavar, an 18-year-old prostitute, was last seen by her lover getting into a paint-patched pickup in the spring of 1983, along with a man with black hair who appeared to be in his 30s or 40s. When authorities questioned Ridgway at his house 4 days later about his knowledge of Malvar, he denied having any. When authorities questioned Ridgway about the killings in November, he continued to deny knowing the victims. The lack of evidence allowed the authorities to link him to none of the crimes. In 2003, Ridgway revealed to investigators that when being questioned in 1983, he had leaned against a fence to hide scratches Malvar had made on his arm as he attempted to flee. Then, according to Ridgway, he burnt the scratches using battery acid to hide all evidences. Ridgway passes a polygraph exam in May 1984. Due to his well-known connections to local prostitutes, Ridgway was already under suspicion and called the police ostensibly to offer aid. After passing a polygraph exam, he denied ever killing any woman. 1986. Ted Bundy and the cops speak. Authorities were searching desperately for any information to help them with their investigation because there were few solid leads in the Green River killer case. Convicted serial killer Ted Bundy penned a letter to Reichert offering his assistance in the investigation after learning about it through the media. Reichert took a plane to Florida, the location of Bundy's execution row. Bundy allegedly told investigators during conversations that the murderer might be going back to his victims' corpses and having sex with them. Ridgway subsequently verified this theory. 1987. The DNA sample that will ultimately lead to Ridgway's demise is provided. In 1987, police conducted a search of Ridgway's residence and automobiles in relation to the killings, since he was the last person believed to have been seen with two of the victims. At that point, Ridgway at last gave authorities a sample of his saliva, which would subsequently link him to the crimes. But Ridgway was free for over 10 years because of inadequate DNA testing at the time. March 2001. Ridgway is linked to 3 killings as a result of expanded DNA testing. Using cutting-edge forensic testing methods at their disposal, detectives re-examined evidence collected over the course of the killer's life. A forensic scientist from the Washington State Patrol Crime Laboratory named Beverly Himmick told the New York Times, "It was a last-ditch effort. Even though we didn't have much, we nonetheless combed through a significant amount of evidence. We swabbed the ligatures for cellular debris and cleaned every fingernail in an effort to find any traces of evidence. We were able to locate some sperm attached to one girl's pubic hair. Because of the saliva sample Ridgway had given in 1987, 3 new victims' DNA profiles were compared with Ridgway's. All 3 were a match." November 30, 2001. The Green River Killer's capture is announced by the police. When Ridgway, then 52, was taken into custody in relation to 4 of the Green River Killer's early victims, Marcia Chapman, Opal Mills, Cynthia Hines, and Carol Ann Christensen, it was publicized by King County Sheriff Reichert nearly 2 decades after the first murder. In 1983, Christensen's body was found. November 5, 2003. A guilty plea from Ridgway. In exchange for his confession and information about the locations and circumstances of the murders, Ridgway submitted a guilty plea to 48 counts of aggravated first-degree murder. This plea deal spared him the death penalty. Ridgway acknowledged in a statement that he killed the majority of his victims in his truck or residence before getting rid of the bodies. "I killed so many women, I have a hard time keeping them straight," he added. He added that most of the time he didn't even know the identities of the victims. "I don't remember their faces well, and most of the time I killed them when I first met them." Ridgway explained that he picked the ladies he believed to be prostitutes because they were easy to pick up without being noticed. "I was aware that they might never be declared lost, and that they would not be reported missing right away. I chose to target prostitutes because I believed I could murder as many of them as I wanted without being discovered." December 18, 2003. A sentencing date for Ridgway. A judge in King County Superior Court found Ridgway guilty of his crimes and sentenced him to 48 life terms to be served consecutively without the prospect of release. February 18, 2011. Ridgway admits to killing 49 people. At the King County Regional Justice Center in Kent, Washington, Ridgway was charged with murder and entered a guilty plea for the 1982 death of 20-year-old Rebecca Marrero. In addition, he was given his 49th life term. In his 2003 plea agreement that spared him from the death penalty, Ridgway previously admitted to killing Marrero. However, at the time, police decided not to prosecute him because he was unable to produce sufficient proof. In December 2010, Marrera's bones were found not far south of Seattle. April 24, 2020. Amid the epidemic, Ridgway's release is denied. In a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court of Washington dismissed a case that sought the release of thousands of eligible prisoners, including Ridgway, in order to help halt the COVID-19 pandemic. The Green River Killer, Mind of a Monster, an investigation discovery documentary, focused on Ridgway just a few weeks earlier in February. Tapes from Ridgway's police interviews are included in the episode. December 19, 2023. Another Ridgway victim is identified by the police. With the aid of DNA testing, the King County Sheriff's Office determines that the remains of one of Ridgway's victims, formerly known simply as Bone 17, belonged to Lori Ann Respotnik. At the age of 15, Respotnik fled her home in the neighboring Lewis County in 1982 and was never heard from again. In Auburn, Washington, 2 sets of remains were found in 1985, one of which was hers. Years later, in 2002, Ridgway admitted to authorities that he had dumped 2 of his victims in the same vicinity. As he spends his life behind bars at Washington State Penitentiary, the story of Ridgway serves as a somber testament to the resilience of justice and the tireless efforts of those who strive to unveil the truth. May the victims be remembered, and may their families find solace as society reflects on the collective responsibility to protect and uphold the sanctity of human life. The twisted path that led to Ridgway's imprisonment stands as a sobering narrative, urging us to remain vigilant against the shadows that may seek to shatter the lives of the innocent. In our previous video, we explored the unsettling story of Todd Kohlhepp, a case that shares eerie similarities with the horrors perpetrated by Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. Join us as we navigate through the details of Kohlhepp's heinous acts, drawing connections and contrasts to the dark narrative we uncovered. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel, Crime Scene Archives, for more true crime stories. Keep safe, always.